In this video, I want to share with you my journey of transformation and growth and how I have shifted some of the paradigms in my life to get to the point where I am today. My story starts about 10 years ago. I was working in the tech industry and I was laid off. And at the time I was married, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew that if I could work for 16 years, basically for the same company, the company had gone from company to company. It was bought out a few times over those 16 years, but I stayed committed, I stayed loyal, I stayed with that company, even though some of my colleagues were going to different companies and coming back and doing things to get more salary. If you've ever worked in corporate America, you know that that's what some people do. They go from company to company and gain and earn more money as they switch companies and switch roles. Well, I stayed with that company for 16 years, and then in 2012, I was laid off, and it was very unexpected. I had survived several layoffs over the years, but it hadn't affected me until 2012. And I was married at the time. Our marriage was a little rocky, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do going forward with my life as far as a job goes. And I think I was also thinking that I had a higher purpose. I had some dreams earlier, a few years earlier, that I kind of just blew off and didn't really give much thought to because I couldn't see a way to accomplish it. They were big dreams, big things that weren't even in my field. I was in tech at the time. And what I really wanted to do, or what the dream and thought that came to me, was outside of tech. So I kind of just blew it off and didn't really think about pursuing it until I was laid off. And I started to think about it again and started to think, well, maybe I need to venture out on my own. And instead of really settling into another job in another company that could lay me off again, maybe I should go for this dream and maybe start my own business. Well, for the majority of my marriage, well, for all of my marriage actually, I was working to support the family, and my husband was working on growing his business. So when I was laid off, I asked if we could switch roles, if I could take the time to step back and really think about what I wanted to do next and maybe start my own business. And he could get a job to support us while I was doing that work and taking that time to really think about what I wanted to do next. And his answer was no. He said that's not something he wanted to do. That's not something he was willing to do. So for me, when he said no, it was really crushing. And I felt alone. I felt unsupported. And I knew at that point that that was the start of the end of my marriage. So we separated. This was in 2012. We separated, and I moved from Texas to Georgia and got an apartment. I had an apartment on my own, and I was really struggling. I worked some temp jobs here and there because I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I had to have some kind of income. So I would take temp jobs. I worked for a few companies as a temp worker, but nothing really resonated with me because I think in the back of my mind, I still had this dream there, this dream of the impact that I could have on the world, this dream of a higher purpose for myself and for my life. So during 2012 and 2013, I tried everything I could think of to really start the business while I was working these temp jobs, but nothing really worked. And towards the beginning of 2014, I finally got my first client in 2014. In January 2014, I got my first client, and I started working just as a freelancer, because at that point I still didn't know what I could do to start a business or make money. And I wasn't ready to really put myself out there to go for my big dream. It was something that was still looming, but it wasn't something I was ready to move forward and take a risk to really achieve. And if you can relate to that, let me hear you in the comments. Share with me in the comments if you have a big dream that maybe scares you, a big dream that you've wanted for so long and so many years, but you're just a little hesitant to go for it. If you can relate to that feeling, if you can relate to how I was feeling at that time, then comment below and let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. So this was in early 2014. I started getting clients as a tech freelancer, but I still wasn't making a lot of money. And by the end of 2014, I had only made $7,000 in my business. And I had made other money just from other things, other side hustles that I was doing, because I knew I wasn't making enough through my business and the freelance work. So I sold everything I could on eBay. I sold everything I could on Amazon. I actually took an Amazon course and sold everything I could on Amazon, but that still wasn't bringing in the money that I was making back on my tech job. So at the end of 2014, I got a business coach, and something that I left off in 2014, this is something that I really struggle to talk about, which is probably why I skipped over it, but I think it's important for me to share. In 2014, I was living in Georgia, but I ended up having to move back home with my mom in Alabama because I could no longer pay my rent. My lease was up and I was being evicted because I hadn't signed the lease. There were some problems with the lease. So for a long time, I like to say that it wasn't my fault that I was evicted, but in a way, it kind of was my fault. I stayed there knowing that I wasn't making enough money to support myself. I was trying to piece everything together and make things work. And it just wasn't working. I was really not being honest with myself. And instead of going to the office and saying, you know what, I need to not renew my lease, and making a decision beforehand, before the lease was due, the new lease was due, to say, this isn't working, I need help, I need to move back home. I think my pride got in the way, and I felt that I could make it work. I felt that I could force it to happen. And that's really not how transformation works. That really is not how successful businesses work. It does take work, it does take time, but what I found over the years is that it's so much more mindset than it is action. It's not doing actions that you think will work. It's working on your thoughts and your mindset, and then taking inspired action. The inspired action is what will lead to greater results. And that's something that I found out over the years that I didn't know at the time back in 2014. So I did get evicted. I was in my 40s. I was separated from my husband. I moved back in with my mom, and I was feeling really down for most of 2014. I had a pastor from the church that I grew up in who would come by and knock on the door, wanting to talk to me, wanting to encourage me and see how I was doing. And I would sit in the dark and not answer the door. I just felt so discouraged. I felt ashamed because I went from an $80K a year job to being evicted. I was ashamed. I didn't know what people were thinking about me. I felt like a failure. It was just a very tough place for me, and I'm so thankful that I had my mom to support me and to move back in with her. And I also had my dad's support, even though they are divorced. They were both very supportive and very encouraging for me during that time. So I get through 2014, I get moved into my mom's house. And at the end of that year, I had only made $7,000 in my business. So I knew I needed help, but the help that I thought I needed at the time was business help. So I hired a business coach, and it did help my business. So in 2015, I was able to make around $32,000 a year. So I went from $7,000 a year in my business to $32,000 a year in my business, just by learning the business foundation and working with a business coach. But then what I found was starting in 2016, 2017, my income started to decrease. I started to bring in less and less money. And I didn't really understand why at the time, because I had all the foundation. I knew what I needed to do. I was still working with that coach. I was still going to the training, but for some reason, my income kept going down. So at that point, I decided to take a step back from business coaching, and I felt that there was something within me, something internal, that was keeping me from achieving the success that I wanted to achieve. So I took a step back. I only kept the clients that I had. I didn't work on marketing or bringing on any new clients. I just took the time to work on me. So I, again, was searching. I spent some time learning Reiki. I'm certified in Reiki. I spent some time doing energy healing to understand all of the chakras and try to heal whatever needed to be healed within myself. So I am certified in life force energy healing. And then I was led to the mind. And I love the progression. Sometimes we try to skip steps. We don't give ourselves the time to really learn and grow and go step by step as things come to us, as opportunities come to us. I learned so much from Reiki and energy healing, and those are things that I'll take with me for the rest of my life. And they actually fit very closely into that long-term dream that I spoke about earlier. And at some point I will share with you my big dream and how I'm planning to roll it out and to really have an impact on the world and help people just like me and just like you to achieve the results that we want to achieve in our lives. So I go from energy work to discovering that there's some mindset shifts that I need to make also, to get to the point where I'm achieving what I want to achieve in my life. So I was led to subconscious release technique, and I studied that. I loved doing that. It helped me to release some of the things that were holding me back. I'm also certified in subconscious release technique. I am a learner by nature. I love studying. I love soaking in knowledge. And I love being able to share that knowledge with others to help others succeed. So from there, I was led to the Proctor Gallagher Institute. And that's where things really started to turn around for me. I signed up for their 12-month coaching program, and I was able to learn all of the things about my subconscious mind, learn all the things about the laws of the universe, and I was able to apply them to my life. So by this time, it's 2019 going into 2020. And at the beginning of 2020, I decided that it was time for me to go back full time into my business. I felt I was ready. I felt I had done the work on myself internally. I felt I spent the right amount of time, and I felt confident that I was ready to really go back full time into my business. At that time, I had moved from living with my mom to living with my dad, because my mom sold her house and moved into more like an apartment community. So I was living with my dad at the time, pretty much couch surfing in my 40s and trying to just figure everything out for my life. If you can relate to that, then share with me in the comments and let me know that I am not alone in this, in really wanting to find out what it is that you should be doing for your life, and really wanting to figure out the code, figure out the keys to achieve the results that you want to achieve in life. If you're with me on that, comment below, and yeah, let me know that I'm not alone in this. So at that time, it was 2020. I was living with my dad, and I decided to come back full time in my business. And when I set that intention, when I said to God and the universe, I am ready to get back out there, I'm ready to grow my business again, I had 3 clients reach out to me and say that they wanted to start working with me again. They reached out to me. I didn't have to reach out to them. They reached out to me. And once they reached out to me, that's when I needed to do the sales call and the contract and provide the service that they were looking for. So I doubled my income in 2020. I bought a house in 2020. And this is my new house. I'm no longer couch surfing. I am officially divorced from my husband. And I have a wonderful dog that I love so very much. She brings so much to my life, and someday I'll share her on a video as well so you can see my little snuggle bug. But what I really want to point out, what I really want you to see, is that it took me several years of searching, and it doesn't have to take years, but it did take me several years of searching and following the inspiration step by step. As I felt I needed something, as I was struggling with something, opportunities came to me. The right people showed up to help me to get to that next step. the right situations showed up for me to help me get to that next step. And as I've gone through the years, the big dream that I had several years ago that I really blew off and didn't pay any attention to, that keeps coming back to me over and over and over again. So it's definitely something that I need to pursue. And as a Procter Gallagher consultant, I am in a perfect place to start bringing that dream into reality, to start impacting more people. Last year, I went back to the Procter Gallagher Institute, mainly for my own growth, but I was presented with an opportunity to be a consultant and to share this life-changing teaching with other people, to help other people who may be like me, who were laid off or lost their job or went through a divorce, maybe went through a dark time in their life, maybe who just want more and have a big dream that they've had forever that they really haven't put much time and effort into, that they really want to pursue right now. If this sounds like you, and if my story resonates with you, then you're the type of person that I really want to support, that I really want to mentor, and that I really want to help and see succeed. So that's where I am now in my journey. I've come to the point where I'm back on my feet. My business, my tech business, is a six-figure business, and I'm happy with my clients. My clients are long-term clients who work with me for years. So it's really time for me to step out of my comfort zone and share the paradigm shifts, share the mindset shifts, share everything that I've learned over the years when it comes to doing the inner work with other people to help you to grow and become the people that you want to become and live the life that you want to live. I hope that my story serves as a story of encouragement for you. If you're going through a hard time, if you're not sure what your next step is, if you're having a hard time figuring things out, just know that it is possible to figure things out. It is possible to pick yourself back up if you find yourself knocked down. I've been there, and feeling a little emotional, but I've been there. I know how difficult it can be to go from making your own money and having your own house to being evicted and moving back in with your parents late in life. I know exactly how that feels, and I also know how it feels to come out of that and to be on the other side of that, and I know how to get you there. So if you are looking for a mentor, if you're looking for support, then I encourage you to check out the links in the description and reach out to me to have a discussion one-on-one, or join our free paradigm shift that's coming up in a couple of weeks. This training will help you to see exactly what you need to change in your life to get to the next part of your journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next video.